Welcome to another episode of BoxSeat. BoxSeat is a podcast featuring some of the best consumer brands from Britain. We're looking to give up to £1 million in funding to the future consumer brands of tomorrow. Brands that not only want to be profitable, but make a better world. It's my absolute pleasure today to introduce Laura Harnett, founder of Seep.
Yeah, that's it.
One of my favourite female entrepreneurs. So thank you for coming to our little muse house today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
And it's a big day for you as well, isn't it?
It's an absolutely huge day. You're taking me sort of taking away the fact that I'm going to be on Dragon's Den tonight off my mind.
Wow.
So I'm feeling less nervous just being here.
But, you know, is this a similar setup to Dragon's Den?
It's not even close. This is much more friendly. There's no lift. Exactly. I haven't got like a lineup of dragons in front of me. So it's much nicer.
I won't be like Deborah Meaden, you know, I won't try and intimidate you at all. I'll try and be friendly.
Yeah, she's the friendly one.
Is she?
Yeah, in the end she is.
Come on, give us the lowdown. Who's the nice ones? Was Gary Neville on it?
No, Gary Neville wasn't on it. Stephen Bartlett was on it.
Okay.
Trinny Woodall.
Yeah.
Deborah Meaden, Peter Jones. I mean, I think Peter Jones and Tuka Sulliman are the ones that are sort of fairly, like, quite hardcore.
Okay.
You know, it's all about profitability and then they love their numbers.
Yeah.
And so those are the scary ones.
Do you think it's sort of deliberately trying to be intimidating, sort of be the alpha male in the room?
100%.
Is it? Yeah.
100%.
I can imagine that, really. Who's your favourite? Come on, can you tell us?
I mean, obviously the two that backed me. I mean, I'm going to say that. But actually, when I went in, so Trinny was the guest dragon. She's just phenomenal. So like I've been following her. She was the original sort of fashion influencer 20 years ago. Voted Entrepreneur of the Year, and like she's built a phenomenal global beauty brand. So when I found out she was on it just for our episode, she was obviously like top of my list. And then also top of my list, equal top, was Deborah Meaden, because she's like, she backs sustainable brands. She really cares. She knows what she's talking about. So.
And the program's airing tonight, so it's not under embargo now. So by the time this comes out,
it will be fine. Yeah, it'll be fine.
So come on, spill the beans. Were you successful in your investment raise?
We were successful, yeah. So my mission going in was to drive awareness for the brand. So we have, I want people to know that there's a better alternative to sponges and cloths and that aren't made of plastics. That was number one, 5 million people to hear about Seep. Mission number two, even if you go in, you're not guaranteed to get aired. So if you get an offer, you're more likely to be aired. And then if you accept the offer, you're more likely to be aired. And so that is what I was gunning for, was an offer from those two.
And the offers came from?
So the offers came from Deborah and Trinny. They shared.
Oh, right.
They shared.
I thought it was Stephen and Trinny.
No, Deborah and Trinny.
Okay.
All female dragons. And then Tuka also had a little pop. He put an offer in, but for that was a pretty, wasn't as compelling, let's say.
Okay. So are you allowed to say, for those that sort of don't know behind the scenes, so they make an offer. Yeah. But is it really at the true valuation, and is it a realistic offer?
So you have to go in saying what offer you want. So we were asking for £50,000. It's the smallest amount of money you can ask for.
Okay.
So I asked for the smallest amount of money, and I was offering 1% of the business, which, normally, so it's about a 5 million valuation. But they
got a deal.
They got a deal. They got a deal. Yeah, they got a deal. And but the way that we think about it is that they're bringing their media, their sort of platform, all of their followers, and now we've got to get them to work hard for their special deal.
It's worthwhile doing, just for the traffic, isn't it?
Yeah, just for the traffic. And we've already started recording things with Trinny that she's going to be sharing with her audience. Asked Deborah to already do some intros for us. So I think it's now up to me to make it work.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it tonight. And I know under a bit of time pressure, because you've got to head back off to the screening and the press of it. So listen, why don't you just kick off to our viewers, our limited viewers. Tell us about Seep. Just tell us about the product. Give us your sort of 90-second elevator pitch.
So my name's Laura and I'm the founder of Seep, and Seep is Europe's fastest growing eco-cleaning tool company. So we sell a range of cloths and sponges and scourers and gloves that are all plastic free and that look beautiful next to your sink. The easiest way of describing why I set Seep up was to take you back to my trip to the supermarket, which basically was where the flash of inspiration started. I'm an eco-conscious shopper. I want to buy better for the planet, better for me brands. My trolley was full of like Dorset cereals and Tony's Chocolonely. I walked down the cleaning aisle and I picked up some non-toxic spray and detergent, so like Ecover Method. And then I turned to the aisle where the cleaning tools were to pick up a sponge and a cloth. And basically it looked like the 90s. Everything was like old-fashioned branding, the products. I'm just going to pull one out here so that you remind you. Just happen to have this on me. But these kind of green and yellow, horrible plastic scourers. And basically they're all made of plastic. The kind of bobbly bit at the top is microplastic washing off into your sink. Onto your dishes, and like the impact of that on you and the planet is not great. So I decided to set Seep up to be the brand, the global brand that is the sort of healthier, better alternative for people.
So effectively, environmentally friendly cleaning products. So let's talk about your bestseller first.
Yeah. So this is our bestseller. So this is our equivalent of this.
Okay.
So instead of it
nicer
being
looking, I've got to say
better
that.
looking, So what we talk about is that it's easy to use. So we have this amazing community of customers that test stuff for us, and we make them better. So 94% of customers say that this is better. There you go.
Is this natural sponge?
This is natural. So the bottom bit is all made of cellulose, so it's wood pulp.
Okay.
And it's kind of bubbled up, and then on the top is a piece of loofah. Lots of people think loofah is sponge from the sea, but it's not. It's a vegetable that grows on the vine.
Okay.
And we stitch the two together.
Yeah.
It goes all soft when you put it in the water, and then you use it for a month or two, and then you can cut it up and put it into your compost heap, and it completely breaks down. Zero plastic each time you use it, and they look way better next to your sink.
And you're going to get some people that are going to be doubtful about the performance.
Yeah.
We've actually used them in the house, so we know they actually work. What's the performance like?
So like that stat that I just shared, 94% people like it. And like say it's either better or it works just as well as these. And so we've worked really high. This is like version 10. Like we've been improving it, making it more flexible, making it last longer. Yeah. And then we've got a range of other products that you can use with them. Like, so this is our cloth, so that instead of the microfiber cloth, which quite a lot of people use, is made of polyester, which releases microplastics again. So ours is made from sustainably sourced bamboo. And again, it's been tested and developed with our customer base.
Yeah. Anything else?
These are our copper scourers.
Yeah.
Love
Seen
these.
those in the kitchen.
They're so pretty. Yeah. And so copper scourers, why do we use copper? Antibacterial.
They look better as well.
They do look better.
Yeah.
So in the old days, Victorians used to put milk in copper jugs because it doesn't attract bacteria. So that means that you've got less bacteria sitting in your sink. They're anti-rust, so they don't go rusty, and they're endlessly recyclable. So all of our products we've designed with like end of life in mind, so that they should be circular. None of these should be going into landfill at the end of it.
Because, I mean, we chatted before, but I just recently saw the documentaries that Buy Me or Buy Now, on Netflix. And for all of those that have not watched it, please watch it today. And the fundamental message that I took away from that was that we're not thinking about products at the end of their life.
Yeah.
That all we're simply thinking about is, I'll buy that Brillo pad. Oh, it's quite good in the kitchen. But I'm not thinking what happens after I throw it away. Yeah. Which is a ridiculous idea, isn't it? It's got to get to a stage where we're starting to think about the planet and thinking, what happens to these products? We can't just keep throwing them away. Yeah. And it's that fundamental shift in the way a consumer thinks. Just actually think, what happens to your products? Because since my wife has actually started to use Seep, because I said, look, we're going to be chatting to Laura, please test these out. And she's become a lot more conscious of everything that she's using. And it's crazy, isn't it? That we don't think about end of life.
It's insane. So yeah, there's a great book called Cradle to Cradle. And so the idea is everything is typically designed cradle to grave, but actually if you think cradle to cradle so that it can be reborn into something else or endlessly replaced, it's much better. So yeah.
And it's, some people seem to get it wrong. I think there's so much commentary about that you can't have a sustainable business if you're involved in a sustainable product, which is crazy because you look at someone like Patagonia, and there was an amazing podcast that I listened to with the founder of Patagonia, and he was talking about his obsession with end of life. And, I never realized that actually now Patagonia products are warranted for life. So whatever happens with Patagonia products, if you buy a jacket, if it suddenly you wear a hole in it, you can bring it back to be repaired. And if they can't repair it, they'll give you a new product. And what that actually does is forces Patagonia to think about their product, making sure that you're using better quality. And yes, they might be charging more in the short term, but in the long term, you actually save money.
It's so good. And I think that's the other reason why recycling isn't the answer. Everyone, it kind of feels like people say that to make it go away, right? It's fine, it's recycled, whatever. Yeah. But actually, every time you recycle it, it becomes less and, it's not as good. And all you're doing is saving like 1 or 2 life cycles before it still ends up in landfill. So it's,
Well, nip it at the bud.
Yeah.
It's like the idea with plastic, cups and, plastic bottles. It's just carry around with you, a stainless steel bottle. It's not only going to keep your drink cooler, it's not only going to be more hygienic, but you won't need to have plastic, bottles that are going anywhere. And it's just these simple thoughts, isn't it? Of really starting to be conscious of end of life and stuff like that. I don't want to just talk about product, and I love the proposition you've got in terms of, look, we're taking an unsexy area, homeware product, and we're really trying to get people to think and be conscious of what those products are made of. And I think, to be honest, I'm absolutely sold on that. Let's talk now about your traffic, how you're getting customers. Let's talk about your distribution. Yep. Let's talk about what makes you unique.
Yeah. So right from the start, I knew that I wanted to build this as a multi-channel brand. So we've got 3 channels. We talk about 3 channels. One is our own website, and we drive traffic through like a whole raft of different ways. So we do lots of press, organic, social. We do some paid social. Then we've got Amazon. So actually we find that one of the top places people are searching for our product is Amazon because it's convenient. And then the third one, which is how we really scale the business, is retail, which is where most people are still buying these products. So, and those 3 channels all work together. What we found is people who have discovered us in retail then are like, right, we don't want to just buy a single, we want to buy a multi-pack. Yeah. We're going to buy that from them directly because it's a bit cheaper. Or we find that people have bought from us directly, but actually it's just easier for them to just add us to their weekly shop. And so it's how all 3 of them work together where the magic happens.
And how do you get into 500 Tesco stores? I mean, you've done it relatively quickly, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been like the first couple of years was mostly about D2C for us. And then we realized that we needed single formats because that's what people buy on the shelf. And Tesco, it was a lot of hard work being in the right time, right place, an intro to the right person, just as they were starting their kind of accelerator scheme. So they've, coming out of the kind of cost of living crisis, Tesco has been one of the first retailers out there to go, right, we need more of these young challenger brands that are better for you and the planet. And we were just, right time, right place, and we were ready for it, right? We had the stock and the ambition. And so we got onto that accelerator, which meant that we got a sort of nationwide listing.
And what's, a lot of people talk about sell-in, but what's your sell-through been like? What's your performance been like in Tesco's?
Yeah, so we launched just like mid-November, which is, to be honest, not a great time to launch. No. It's like just before Christmas. Everyone's thinking about filling up their like brandy butters and mince pies and things. But we worked really hard. The focus before Christmas has been about getting on shelf, making sure that we're stocked and actually available on shelf. And then, so we're just off our rate of sale targets, but we're launching, so because of Dragon's Den, we've been able to unlock off-shelf space across 250 of Tesco's biggest stores in February on our first big off-shelf promotion. And so those are the sorts of things that really, really help drive visibility. We'll be front of store next to the pie aisle.
And listen, I've got to ask you some tough questions because obviously the product comes as a premium. Okay, so let's take the scourer that we just looked at and the dreaded yellow and green one.
Yeah.
So what sort of price premium are we talking about, and how are you going to overcome that? How are you going to convince the customer to spend a bit more extra and be more environmentally conscious?
Yeah. So there is a price premium to it, right? So you can buy, probably not quite this one, but you can buy, 2 or 3 of these for £1, something like that. And then one of ours is £2.95. And so ours is priced to be around, it's a little bit more expensive than something called Scrub Daddy, which is
plastic is
100% plastic. But it's, I would say, the kind of most premium, it's at the premium end of this category. And I think it's great that Scrub Daddy are now, so up until over the last few years, it's all been about the bottom end of the market, the value end. And actually the category hasn't grown. But since Scrub Daddy came in from the US, it set a new price point, which then has allowed Seep to come in next to it. And in comparison, we want to be within 15-20% of Scrub Daddy, which is, if you look at all of the other adjacent categories, is the kind of premium that you would expect to see for an eco product. It's still not an easy sell. So that means that, and some of the things that we talk about why people use them. So roughly what we found is that people change these every 1 to 2 weeks, whereas actually ours last a couple of months. So that's what we've got some sort of hard data from our customer base to show that these last longer. Because if they're cheap, people just chuck them as soon as they look a bit grubby.
But also it's okay that comes at a premium because, taking care of the environment, costs a premium. Electric cars are more expensive than gasoline cars, but they're better cars and they're better for the environment. And the thing that I believe is in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, we will look back and go, what, you were using plastic bottles, what, you using plastic-based scrubbers? Why did you not realise that none of these products could actually disintegrate? They just had to go into landfill. So it's not a question of the fact that it's a bit more. It's a question of, look, in the next 10 to 20 years,
this will be the norm.
That would be the norm. Yeah. And we'll look back at this period and go, you were crazy. Yes, obviously we've got a crazy situation at the moment with Trump, and he's a bit of a climate denier, and the fact that he's sponsored by virtually every gasoline company out there, and maybe he's got something to do with it. But, I believe that's a blip. I think in the long term, we'll have a plastic-free environment. I hope so.
To go. Yeah. And, people, so we've sold over 1 million of these now.
Wow.
And so people are prepared to pay a premium. We talk a lot about, the decisions, the choices we've made to make this compostable at end of life. And it does mean it's a bit more expensive, but I think once you've taken the time to explain why, and people have used it and can see it lasts longer, then it's a less, it's not such a hard sell.
Totally. I mean, we've spoken before, we've backed new chewing gum, and it's a plastic-free alternative to plastic-based gum. And most customers out there don't realise they're chewing plastic. But what price do you put on the fact that your kids are chewing plastic? Not only is that plastic, you can't get rid of it, and it's on all the ground everywhere, but actually they've just shown that microplastics are going into your bloodstream and your brain. Well, what price do you put on that? You're happy to pay a price that your child is well educated, but surely you've got to be happy to pay a premium to make sure your children are eating products that don't kill them or don't affect their health. And that's across the board, really. So you can't put a price on.
You can't.
On the environment.
And over time, we're going to be doing high-low pricing. So, $2.95, but then promoting so that it encourages people to use it. And then we know that once people have tried it, then they stick with it.
And let's talk about defensibility, because, what is your defensibility? Because when you go on Amazon, you can pick up natural sponges, you can pick up copper scrubbers, XYZ. What do you feel, what makes your product special and you can defend your product?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is that we've built this business from the ground up to be a sustainable business. We're a B Corp. And I think that is a signal to everybody that, we don't just, that everything we do is considered. We haven't just stuck an eco word at the beginning, on all of our packaging. And, so we pay people decent wages. We've chosen very carefully how we built a business. So super important. The second one is a lot of the stuff that's out there is greenwashing. So if you go onto Amazon, 100%. You can buy a brown and green packaged sort of eco sponge that looks like a bit bamboo-y, natural. It looks like you're being a really considered when you buy it. You to bring it home. And then what you haven't realised, and they haven't declared it anywhere, is that actually the top bit is a little bit of bamboo mixed in with plastic, and so it's all over this category. We do that play on words. There's a lot of greenwashing, and so are you greenwashing one word or are you greenwashing two words? And I think over time people will understand the difference, and so
it's even like ESG.
Yeah, yes.
Let's be frank.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of ESG funds out there, and when you look at the criteria of what ESG is, sometimes it's just investing in the best in class. So it could be in petrochemicals, and they'll go, I'll invest in BP because it's not as bad as everyone else. Well, hold on, 70 or 80% of the profits of BP comes from petrochemicals, comes from oil. Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, that's not an ESG product.
That's not an ESG fund. And actually the government is clamping down more and more on those kind of claims. And, so we just have to be at the forefront of it. So we've just invested in the most advanced home composting testing on our bestseller. And we'll be the only people to be able to put that on our packaging so that it gives the consumer confidence to go and buy it.
When I looked online, I think one of the things that stood out was that you're one of the few brands that are out there.
Yeah.
You're a trusted brand in that sector. It's obvious that you care passionately about that subject. And that all of your products you've thought about, you've considered.
Yeah.
So when the customer is buying it, they know it's authentic.
Yeah.
And so, your major defensibility has to be the fact that you've chose the brand.
Yeah.
And actually, I love the fact that you've gone into a really unsexy area and developed a lovely brand in there.
Yeah.
And we talked, when you came around the house before, we talked about, colours and things like that, didn't we? And because I think a lot of people just don't realise, also, look, let's be frank, women are really proud of their houses and they really care about the way they look. Well, why shouldn't they care about the way the scrubber looks?
And I think I'd love to think that everyone's quite eco, but they're not, right?
No.
If you want to hit the mainstream, you've got to make it look great. And it just happens to be eco and you can trust it at the back. So we're trying to produce products. So this sort of thing we're really excited about. So these products are made from, the patterns. We can do some really lovely collabs with fashion brands so that it becomes a sort of lifestyle brand as well. And I think that's again, how we defend ourselves versus some of the really traditional players in the category that won't be able to do it.
Let's now talk about your journey. I think obviously it's fantastic to have a woman entrepreneur here. I really fundamentally believe that we need to have more women in leadership and more women entrepreneurs. And that isn't about nepotism or being pro women just for the sake of it. I actually believe that women have got more emotional intelligence, and they really understand, the human instincts of buying products. So talk to us about your background, being a female entrepreneur, why you feel that helps you. Obviously, the main customer, let's be frank, is going to be women. So just give us a bit of a background on your own career.
So I grew up in South Wales in Swansea, and my mum's French, my dad's English. Did not come from a family of entrepreneurs. Like the message was get a stable job and stay in it for life if you're lucky, have a good pension. So I kind of did that and went to uni and then spent 20 years.
What did you study at uni?
Biochemistry.
Oh, do you know what? I did environmental science.
Did you? There you go.
How boring was it? I used to hate labs. Did you hate labs?
Well, I quite liked the science. And then I realised when I did the lab work that I was surrounded by people who didn't want to chat. And I didn't have the patience for working in a lab. And I was like, this is not going to go well.
I had something worse than that. Because when I was younger, I didn't have great skin, right? And if I went in a lab, it really inflamed my skin. So I remember I never went into the lab, and I literally was like, I'm not going in that lab. I just hate the smell of it.
I was rubbish. I just had, if it didn't work straight away, I just got a bit bored and went on to something else. Yeah, it was not for me. And then I was a buyer. So that was my first job. Tinned fish excluding tuna was my first category.
Wow.
Tuna was too strategic, so it was like tinned pilchards and salmon. But it's great because you get to negotiate, you go and get to meet the supplier, like this 22-year-old girl basically trying to do the big I am. And then
would you go out to like fisheries and stuff like that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did the fisheries, and then I did pies and pasties.
Okay.
So I was going around
up in the world.
Yeah, sausage roll factories. Honestly, it was all so glamorous. And then I went on to like confectionery and that sort of thing. And then realised that I didn't really like the buying route is very kind of linear, right?
Yeah.
You just go up. And I realised I had quite a short attention span. So I went into consulting where you get loads of variety. So I worked for so it's for Deloitte and booze. So I worked for Walgreens in the US, IKEA, Coca-Cola, Philips. So projects for all of those guys. And then
what type of projects?
Got everything from cost transformation, which is basically stripping cost out. There was market entry. So how should a new brand go into new market? Category management, due diligence, all that sort of stuff. And I think there was this moment, I was doing some work for Cargill in the US. Do you know about Cargill?
Yeah, no, Cargill.
And there was this moment. Commodities, like really beef, big. Palm oil.
Yeah, really
and
big.
And then I remember this group of protesters outside Cargill. It's owned by I think the Bush family.
Yes.
And they dressed up as orangutans and broke into the building. And
I like it.
And I was just like, I think I'd rather be them.
I'd rather be an orangutan.
I'd rather be in an orangutan outfit trying to, and I just realised it wasn't really for me. And then I had kids, which meant I couldn't stop traveling. I was travelling a huge amount. And so I went in-house and I worked for Selfridges. And so I had an amazing role, amazing brand.
What did you do there?
I was something called Director of Business Planning. It's a bit like a chief of staff. So I worked for the MD there. Oh, wow.
Who was the MD at the time?
She's a lady called Anne Pitcher.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who's kind of sort of fierce, knows fashion inside and out, drives the business really hard. I learned a huge amount about how to build a brand, protect it, put creativity at the heart of a business. So that was pretty incredible.
Brilliant training around there.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. And just the best, they just recruited the best people.
Product focused.
Really product focused.
Do you ever watch the documentary, the drama about
Mr.
the creation?
Selfridge, yeah. He was iconic, that guy. Like lots of the things.
American.
American. Yeah. Like lots of the things we take for granted now about beauty being on the ground floor and being able to touch and feel product all came. Anyway, it's amazing. And then halfway through that, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So,
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's, it's obviously something that you would never wish to get. It's one of those moments as a woman that you dread. But there were loads of silver linings. It was a few years ago now. So, if it hadn't have been for that.
Fully recovered?
Fully recovered. I'm out the other side. It was 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But it made me stop and think about what, the sort of impact I wanted to have in the second half of my career. You know, what legacy? I think you talk about legacy quite, you know, like what do I want to do and what do I want to be proud of? And so I went back for a while into Selfridges, working on our transformation program. It's basically all our websites and digital stuff. And then, but at the time, I just had that experience, like the one that I just described, which was walking around my local supermarket and wondering why there was nothing there. And that, I just couldn't get the idea out of my head. And I just thought, right, well, if someone else does this, it's going to be my life's great regret.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell somebody in 10 years' time, oh, I had that idea, but I was a bit scared. And so I just thought, I can't.
I've had that loads of times.
Have you had it? And have you gone for it every time?
No, I haven't. I've regretted every time I haven't. Yeah. A number of times I've said, oh, this would be really big. Well, I think the real time I went for it was with Box Park, but yeah, I know exactly what you feel.
And I just thought I just couldn't. Yeah, so I lost the fear. I gave myself 3 months. I was like, right, if I can't find a really bloody good reason why not to do this, then I'm just going to do it. I'll set the business up and put my first order in. And so that's it. And so, you know, we're a team now of 6 women. It's an all-female team.
Right.
Love being a female founder. It's like, I think it's hard being a female founder, and the stats are, only 2% of investment goes to female founders.
Why do you think that is?
I think, there's been so much written. There's been so much written about female founders, and just I heard the best stats that actually, each dollar invested or pound invested in a female founder delivers more revenue than in a fully male founder team. You get a higher invested rate of return, and you're more likely to exit if you're a female founder. And so the numbers don't back up why that is. And I think it's probably because we build businesses that make sense to us. There's lots of tech female founders, but I think we build like consumer businesses, health businesses that serve women. And actually, I think money is mostly in the hands of men.
Yeah.
And I think people back things that make sense to them and that reflect who they are. And so I think it's, I think that's part of the reason.
And I think a part of it is the odds are stacked against women. And we don't talk about it enough. The reality is that you get so many women that they have a fantastic career in their 20s, and then they have to make a life choice between having a family or their career, which is unfair. And really, there should be a middle way that they can still have a family and they can still, have a career. Yeah. I actually invested in a business that was specifically trying to deal with that, which was role share, which was to promote role sharing in corporations and not just think of jobs as just like one person, one job, 5 days a week, but actually 2 people that were doing the same job, but 3 days a week each. And actually the stats behind it were incredible. The productivity actually went through the roof. They had a much better work-life balance because, most mothers want to come back to work. They don't want to just be at home, all the time.
And they've got all that experience,
but we don't give them the opportunity. Yeah. We really don't. And I don't think we talk about that enough. We really, we pretend that we want to create diversity, but to create diversity, we've got to create the framework. And it's unfair that women have to make that choice. Of course, you're going to get some people going, oh, well, the man can stay at home. But the reality is that most women want to stay at home with their children, but they also want to have a career. So I don't know why more corporations are not encouraging job sharing. Unfortunately, the business went bust, which is really, really sad.
Yeah.
Do you think, sort of going back to that subject, and I know it's a difficult subject of having breast cancer, and my mum actually passed away with breast cancer, and do you think that we'll look back in future generations knowing what eating certain products or the effect of products are having on our health? And actually, we'll realise, do you think that was a turning point for you? Do you think that as a result of having breast cancer, you also had a consciousness in terms of like, look, I really need, well, firstly, you got an awakening. You got like, oh my God, I've only got one chance to live and really money's not going to make me happy. I'm going to have to be happy, you know, at what I do. But at the same time, there was also reflection of, well, I've got to really be conscious of what I eat. I've got to be conscious of my health. I've got to be conscious of stress. Do you think that had an effect on you as well?
It definitely did. Like, I mean, the numbers are like, it's apparently 10 years ago, it's like 1 in 20 women were getting breast cancer. When I was diagnosed, it's 1 in 8. And I think now it's like 1 in 5, right? So that is, something is going on in our environment, in our lives, and the products that we use that is impacting our bodies. And, you know, for me, I'm sure, you know, we found out I was genetically disposed to it. So I think it was probably going to happen anyway. But, you know, the stress that, you know, in my daily life, you know, being a young mum was probably not, you know, didn't help.
It's been exacerbated.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, the you know, deodorant I was wearing, it's sort of, you know, and plastic and the toxins that are in plastic, you know, they're known hormone.
E-numbers.
Exactly. They're known hormone disruptors in plastic. And especially when you're heating food up in plastic, that those chemicals are leaching into your food. And so, you know, I think this is the tip of the iceberg of what we're learning about plastic and the impact it's having on our lives.
And not just plastics. I mean, it's like all the E-numbers as well. I actually think that in the next 5 to 10 years, with the advent of quantum computing, that you'll be able to know from atomic level what you're eating, and also from an atomic level what's happening to your body. That I think is just going to blow everything open. And I think we're going to have a period in 10 or 20 years that you won't have people drinking brands like Coca-Cola, because just simply they'll go, oh my God, if you have Coca-Cola, it's been proved that you can get cancer from that because of the E-numbers. Or if you're chewing plastic chewing gum, oh, by the way, the plastics are going into your bloodstream. Actually, quantum computing has shown the effects on your body. So there's going to be leaps and bounds of advancements that are going to happen. And I mean, it's happening now.
And hard data, right? So that you actually know what it is. And I think at the moment, it's sometimes there's so much that's thrown at us. It's just quite difficult to know, like, what, you know, what's good for you and what isn't.
Well, there's so many people now. My kids don't really drink, you know. You know, 10 or 20 years ago, that was unheard of. You know, alcohol was just taken for granted. Never mind about smoking, but so they're getting conscious all the time. And I think a major reason behind that is social media. I mean, literally, there's so many health gurus out there, or, you know, creators or whatever, influencers, that, you know, you can't do anything without knowing the effect of it on you. Okay, so, you know, the rest of your team, tell us about the rest of your team.
I've got an absolutely amazing team.
Yeah.
So I have a lady called Jean, who I met when I was a tinned fish buyer excluding tuna.
Big part of your life.
Oh, why not? And so she was a commercial accountant in that team. And so she's had an amazing kind of career. She, you know, finance director, supply chain person, and then paid off a mortgage and then decided to go out and live in South Sudan for 5 years in a war zone, ran refugee camps, and then came back to Norfolk. And she was the first person I called when I had the idea. And I said, look, I know you're going to think I'm completely insane, but I want to set up this eco cleaning tool business. And she was like, at the time, she was like, that does sound a bit insane, but I'll help.
Yeah.
And she's amazing because I feel like she is my secret weapon, because I understand the numbers of my business. I understand what's driving profitability.
You've been a buyer.
Yeah. And she's run by big teams, so she's a bit like a co-founder.
Yeah.
And then we've got head of marketing, Sylvia, who's got a background in sort of startups and agency side, a lady who does some of our content. And then we have quite a few fractional people as well. So one, Elaine, who helps on retail sales. So she's used to dealing with people like Ocado and Tesco. And then I've got a head of product who's an ex-fashion buyer who just understands factories, how to work with them, specs. So yeah, I feel so lucky to have a really supportive team.
And okay, so we've covered the key areas. We talked about product. We talked about traffic and your current distribution. We've talked about team. Let's talk about finance, okay? Just give us some of your background numbers. So how many years you've been going? What's your turnover been like?
Yeah.
Are you profitable? You know, fill me in on your financial performance to date.
So we launched about 4 years ago, and we're at about a £2 million annual run rate. Across our 3 channels, we've worked really hard in the last year, and we're CM3 positive, which means all of our channels are contributing to overheads. And so we're not quite profitable, but we're really not far off it.
So what's break even for you in terms of turnover?
So it's about 250. So we need to be at about 3 million run rate, and we should be profitable. Then we want to invest in some more stuff to get ahead of the curve for the next bit. But we want to be masters of our own destiny. Once you're profitable, you can do that.
And what are the most profitable channels for you?
So our most profitable channel is retail, and but I think it's quite hard to talk about it in isolation, because actually D2C is where we probably spend the most amount of marketing, and that's where we attribute all the marketing spend. But actually it has this magic halo effect on all the other channels. That's where you get brand
awareness in some ways. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think Sylvia, who runs all of our marketing and our e-com channel, I think gets a pretty hard bargain, because she gets, she has the least profitable channel, but actually she's doing the hardest job.
But doesn't that always perplex you, that we have people talking about your performance by channel, but yet we don't live in that sort of world nowadays, do we? Because you get this ridiculous situation nowadays where people are closing down shops because they're saying, oh, well, our online channel is more profitable. But you don't really know where the actual sale came from. Yeah. And if you look at some of the most profitable companies out there, things like Apple, they've got fantastic stores, but they're not obsessed with the profitability by channel. Where the sale happens doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so it's the overall thing.
It's the overall. And even if the sale doesn't happen within their own retail environment, even if it happens within John Lewis, it's still a sale.
It's still a sale.
Yeah, it's not a sale by channel.
Yeah, and so we try and break it down so that we can understand the levers we can pull to make each channel as profitable as possible. But, we know that we've had like independent retailers or businesses come to us because they've seen an ad on Instagram. And so, you've got to look at the whole.
So what's the current valuation of the company? What's the basis of the valuation? How much are you looking to raise?
Yeah. So we're raising £1 million in this round, so in our seed round. The valuation is 7 million. And so based on our run rate and the growth, so we've seen sort of 30% quarter on quarter growth. This quarter, we're going to blow that out of the park because of Dragon's Den. And even before Dragon's Den, we're showing at nearly 200% up on our D2C channel. And so, we're raising that. The things that we want to invest in are some really exciting new product development. So there's one product that we don't yet have in our range. Retailers and customers are asking for it, and we want to kickstart the product development for that. The second thing we want to do is to double down on our retail distribution, really go after the next couple of retailers, invest in data.
Waitrose.
Do the promo. Yeah, it's got to happen.
Yeah.
And then we want to start looking at some international. So 100% our focus is the UK, but we want to just plant a few seeds to see, especially in Europe, to see how our product could do there. And then doubling down on our brand, like you said, like our brand is everything. It's what differentiates us, and we have to produce great content. Continue to improve our packaging and get the right creators as well, and influencers behind us.
So do you believe with raising £1 million, you'll become break even?
Yeah. So 1 million, we're not far off it now. And we've run things really as lean as we possibly can. We're that's how I'm wired as a buyer, is to not spend, to try and not spend money, but some careful investment in the things that are going to drive our sales whilst continuing to improve our profitability.
And you're working on a less than a 4 times run rate, whether you're looking at pre-money level.
Yeah, exactly.
At 7 million, so what's that, 3.5?
Yeah, it's about 3. Yeah, somewhere between 3 and 3.5.
Yeah.
And I think, so I think it's a really reasonable.
Have you got some comparables in terms of that valuation?
So if you look at who's raised recently, there aren't that many in market right now. But I think typically round about the 4 mark of current run rate would be fair.
Yeah.
And I think given our growth trajectory, I think it's going to be more than fair.
Okay, so let's move on, say 5 years time.
Yeah.
Okay. What are your own aspirations as a founder? You know, what do you hope will happen eventually?
Yeah.
Because exit's a really important question.
Yeah. So, 2 things. One is we've got an overall mission, which is to save 1 billion plastic clean tools from going to landfill. So that's our North Star. That's what's guiding how we're building the business. So lots of good impact. The thing that drives me is that moment walking into the supermarket. I want to be able to walk into every supermarket in the UK minimum, and be able to find a better alternative in the cleaning tools aisle. And this category just needs innovation and excitement, and Seep is bringing it. And so if you look at the kind of traditional players, we would make a great acquisition target for them, because building an authentically great brand that's built from the ground up to be sustainable takes time. And so I think, a good outcome is that kind of exit. Or, Method and Ecover exited to SC Johnson, right? One of the biggest household businesses in the world. So that could equally be a route.
Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. I'm pretty confident you'll get to where you want to get to. But most importantly, best of luck with Dragon's Den tonight.
Thank you so much.
And I'll be turning on the TV.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It just reminded me that I've got to get nervous again. Thank you for having me.
Take care. You're welcome.
Bye.
Cheers. Okay, it was great to meet Laura from Seep. I'm really impressed with her as a person. I think we need to have more female entrepreneurs, and I think she's a brilliant example of that. She comes from fantastic pedigree. She's worked at Selfridges. She's worked at Kingfisher. She's come up the hard way. She sold tin tuna or tin mackerels as a buyer. I love all of that. It's not just a get rich quick scheme with her. She's actually got a proper track record. I love the fact that she's got an all-female team. So do I believe in Laura as a person? Yes. Do I believe that there's going to be a need for plastic-based homeware or plastic-free homeware products? Yes. I think we'll look back in 10 years' time. I don't think we're going to have, Brillo pads that are made out of plastic. I think that you're going to have increasingly a growth of plastic-free homeware product. And I love the fact that her aim is to become the plastic-free homeware brand. So I believe in the product. And then finally, distribution. She's working across multi-channels, but she's got a core business, which is she's doing really well in retail. She's just joined the Tesco's Accelerator, and she's already in 500 stores. So she's got something there. So, and finally, the financials. Do I think the financials are reasonable? Very similar to that whole market. You're talking about 3 to 4 times sort of run rate. That seems to be about the going rate. I like the fact that she's not far off profitability, and I think it's important for consumer brands now to be profitable. So all in all, do I like Seep? Do I like Laura? Do I like the product? Yeah, I do. Again, I think it's going to be a disruptor in the industry. I think it's going to be the plastic-free alternative to many plastic-based homeware products that we have, and it's only going to grow.